Hey there folks, Tim Slade here from the eLearning Designers Academy and community. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's how-to workshop where we're going to be taking a look at how to build a branching scenario from scratch in Articulate Storyline. Now, if you've never watched any of my how-to workshops before, these are meant to be practical and in-depth sessions where we take a look at all things from instructional design to e-learning design and development, visual design, portfolios, and of course, Articulate Storyline, which is what we're looking at today. Now, if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, make sure to click that like and subscribe and that bell button so that you'll get alerted the next time I publish a video just like this one. And of course, make sure to join us inside the eLearning Designers community. It's completely free. There's a link down in the description, and it's a great place where you can connect, network, and learn from others who are also looking to grow their e-learning design skills and careers. All right, so let's jump in on how to build a branching scenario from scratch in Articulate Storyline. So let me start by showing you exactly what it is we're going to build here today. You know, I did a previous how-to workshop a few weeks back on how to design a branching scenario, some of the design decisions that you need to make when building a branching scenario. And what we're going to do today is how do you actually go about building that branching scenario that you've designed. So here's a great example of a sample branching scenario. This is the one that we're actually going to build today. And this one is a simple, very stereotypical customer service style conversation branching scenario. And this is a good demonstration for us to build and learn the foundations of how to build a branching scenario where there's a conversation and the learner has to decide how to respond, and depending on how they respond, it branches to two potential different outcomes, and then so forth and so on, right? It kind of provides a really good sense of the structure behind a branching scenario. So in this example we have here, how can we help this customer? How can you help this customer? In this scenario, you'll be helping a customer with a billing question. The goal is to help the customer with their questions without escalating the situation. Can you do it? Let's see. All right, so I'll click Get Started here. And you can see here, we're presented with a pretty standard scenario. So we have, some interactions between you, the customer service agent, and the customer. So thanks for calling ComPay. How can I help you today? And our customer says, hello, I just got a bill, and there's a $50 service fee that the rep I spoke to said I wouldn't have to pay. And of course, we have, how would you respond, right? And you can see down here, we have two different options. We have one option that says, well, let's look into that. Let me pull up your account. Do you remember who you talked to? And one where it says, you probably misunderstood the guy, so there's not much I can do about it. Who did you talk to, right? Now, in this example, this is obviously a sample demo branching scenario. If this were a real branching scenario that I was building for a client or a customer, I'd probably have more than two responses here, right? But for the sake of simplicity, for the sake of helping you understand how to actually build a branching scenario in Storyline, we're going to stick with two options for each decision point. And there's clearly a right answer and a wrong answer, right? So anytime I do a branching scenario like this, where I'm teaching somebody how to build a branching scenario and we're experimenting with it, I always like to try and piss off the customer as much as I can. So let's see what happens if I choose the wrong response. You probably misunderstood the guy. There's not much I can do about it. So I'll click on him, click on that response. That fills in here. We can see our customer's expression changed, and then we get some feedback. Be careful with your words when responding to a customer. Remember, they're calling to get your help. Let's continue and see if we can de-escalate the situation. So we'll keep going, and we have a little transition there. So you probably misunderstood the guy. There's not much I can do about it. Who did you talk to? That was the option I selected before. Our customer's still not too impressed with that, and he says, how am I supposed to remember? All I know is that I wouldn't have to pay it because of some promotion. How would you respond, right? Now we have our second decision point. So we have our two options. You're right, I'm sorry, let's see what I can find out in the system. May I put you on hold while I research this? Or listen, don't get mad at me, I didn't cause the problem. Hold, please, right? Again, for the sake of having some fun, let's make the customer really angry. We're gonna put him on hold. Oh no, and look how distressed he looks. Okay, feedback. Try not to take the customer's frustration personally. Remember, they simply want answers to their questions. You still have an opportunity to de-escalate the situation by staying calm and professional. All right, let's keep going. Okay, don't get mad at me. I didn't cause the problem. Hold, please. Well, that's your problem. Ugh. Right? Your customer's still distressed. Now how do we respond? Well, we can say, well, you're right. The fee will be waived in the form of a rebate. Can I send you a rebate slip? Or, well, you were wrong. I looked at your account and you have to pay the $50. That's our policy on new accounts. We're going to say he has to pay it. Oh, and now he's angry. Well, you're wrong. Oh no, I don't have to pay it. He told me I wouldn't have to pay it, otherwise I'd have to sign up. I'd like to cancel my service. Okay. You clearly left the customer unhappy and frustrated. Next time, try and be more patient, understanding about the customer situation. So that's a pretty stereotypical, branching style. And we can start over here, and it just repeats the interaction, right? So in this case, I'll go through it really quickly. We can make the customer happy, right? Let's see what happens if I choose all the right answers. Okay, he seems happy. We'll keep going. He's still happy. Well, let's look into that. Do you remember who you talked to? No, I'm afraid I don't. They said they were running a promotion. All right, I see the $50 charge in your account. May I put you on hold while I research this? He seems happy. Great job. We're de-escalating the situation. We'll keep going. Okay, he says, sure. How would we respond? You're right. The fee will be waived in the form of a rebate slip. Can I send you that rebate slip? Great. He's happy. Great job. The customer's happy, right? So that's a good example of a pretty typical branching scenario. And I'll include a link to this down in the description where you can explore this on your own. So this is what we're going to build in Storyline from scratch. And I'm going to show you everything from the technical aspects of how to build this in Storyline, but I'm also going to show you how I created these graphics. So if you wanted to, you could theoretically follow along with me completely and create these graphics because they're all created in PowerPoint, and build this on your end. So feel free to pause me as I move through this if I go too quickly. Now, before I show you how to build this in Storyline, I also want to show you my Miro board here. So I talked about this in that previous how-to workshop on designing branching scenarios. So you'll see a link up above or down in the description for that. One of the challenges when you're designing and storyboarding a branching scenario is that it's hard to storyboard a non-linear experience in a linear format, right? So when we talk about storyboarding, if you storyboard in Microsoft Word or you storyboard in PowerPoint, those are linear, right? But branching scenarios are non-linear, right? And so this is the storyboard that I've outlined in Miro, where we have a decision point that can branch to two different decision points, and even those two different decision points can branch to multiple decision points, right? And in this branching scenario, there's a total of 8 different outcomes for how we can resolve this situation for our customer. So let me zoom in on this and I can show you this. And I'll include a link to this Miro board in the description below. So again, if you wanted to follow along with this and check this out, you can. All right. So I'm gonna zoom in here to our first question here. And we can see here, question 1, we have thanks for calling Compay. How can I help you? We have the customer's response, select a response. And we can see here, we have our correct response, our incorrect response, the feedback, and then of course the learner can branch to, question 2A. The scrolling's a little weird here in Miro, or the other question. So I'm going to be using this as my guide as I build this branching scenario, and I'll keep referencing this as we move along the way as I build this out. All right. So let's go ahead and start building this out in Storyline. Actually, I'm going to show this too real quickly. I'm going to zoom out here. And what I want you to notice, I'm going to show you the completed version of this in Storyline here. And you can see here, here's the completed version. This is what we're going to build. And this is in Story View. You can see it's very similar structure, right? This kind of pyramid shape looks very similar to what we have here in Miro, right? Because each one of these represents an individual slide that we're going to build. So take some time, look at the Miro board, look at the completed course, and you'll see how it's kind of all connected there and how it's all built out. So that's what we're going to build here. So let's jump over here to this blank slide here in Storyline, or a blank Storyline project. I'm going to pause here and say this. If you're completely brand new to Storyline, I'm going to put a link up above and down in the description where you can check out all of my how-to workshops on Storyline. And I would encourage you to start with my Getting Started with Articulate Storyline, or Beginner's Guide to Storyline. That's a great place to start if you're completely brand new, if you're unfamiliar with triggers or the general layout, all right? Check out those and then you'll be ready to come here. But the most complicated thing we'll be doing in Storyline today is triggers. We're not using any variables, anything like that. So if you're just new to Storyline, you should be just fine following along. So the first thing that we need to do to build out our branching scenario, the first thing that I always like to do when I'm starting a new project is I like to establish some master slides. And the reason I want to establish some master slides is that I want to establish what elements do I want on my screen that I don't need to edit later, right? What are the static items that are always going to be persistent throughout my entire course, or in this case, my entire branching scenario, that I don't want to have to recreate on a slide-by-slide basis? Because what you're going to see as we build out our branching scenarios, or the different decision points in our branching scenario, is that once I've created one decision point, one question, it's just simply a matter of repeating it and duplicating it. And one thing that can help us save some time is by establishing a master slide so that we don't have to recreate these items over and over and over again, all right? So what I'm gonna do is establish the master slide for this branching scenario by going to my View tab, and I'll open up my slide master. And I'm just going to edit my blank master slide here and create the general layout. Now, I've already created all my graphics. I'll show you how I created these here in a moment, but let's go ahead and create the master slide first. So what I need is my background. I need my background and my characters that are in my branching scenario. So I'm going to insert some pictures here from File. And I already have all my graphics here that I created. Again, these were all created in PowerPoint. I'll show you in a moment how I created these. And I have my two backgrounds here, the agent and the customer background. So I'll go ahead and select both of these and insert them here on my slide. And let's make them a little bit smaller here. And as I do this, one of the things I've noticed, when people are new to Storyline, or at least new to creating branching scenarios, is that they oftentimes feel that they need to design their branching scenarios to look like you're in some actual environment, right? And the truth is you don't have to do that. You don't have to make your branching scenarios look like, your agent is actually in a customer service environment or a call center and your customer's in a living room, right? You don't have to do that. What you really are looking to achieve is to show, delineation between one character in the scenario and another character. And so the way I'm doing this is with some simple, graphics to show that, there's a split screen here. There's our agent and then there's the customer, right? So that's my background. Let's go ahead and add our characters in as well. I'll insert some pictures from File. And again, I have my agent and my customer, so I'll select both of those. I'm just holding the Control key or the Shift key on my keyboard to select both of those. And you'll notice that my customer doesn't have a face. I'll explain why here in a moment. Let's make them both a little bit smaller here. They're quite large. So I'll make them about that big. And I'm going to put her over here. And I'm going to put him over here. And I feel like he needs to be just slightly larger. Make her a little bit bigger too. Okay. Now you might be wondering, well, why doesn't he have a face, Tim? Well, the reason he doesn't have a face, and this is helping me be a little bit more efficient, is as we go through the branching scenario, I want the facial expression to change, right? So that's not something I want to have on my master slide, because as the learner progresses and as they select responses, we're going to make the customer happy or angry. And so we're going to be adding those on the slide level and even on our feedback masters. I don't want that here. That's why I have different graphics for each of the facial expressions. All right, so that's the background. Now I want something down here at the bottom, because ultimately I want a space where the learner can select the different options in the branching scenario. So I'm going to go to my Insert tab, insert another picture, and I created this graphic. Here's those faces I was talking about a moment ago. I have this graphic here, my option feedback area. That's just another little shape graphic that I've built in PowerPoint. I'll put that here on my slide. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller here. And that looks good. And let me center it. And I'll bring it down here a little bit more. I want it to cover up just the base of them, right? Good. And I have some space over here at the bottom that's overhanging. I'm just going to crop that out so it's flush with the bottom of the screen. All right. I think that's good. Now, again, you're going to notice I'm not adding the speech bubbles here, because that's all stuff that's going to be changed and edited from slide to slide. So I'm going to leave those on my slides. I'm not going to put those on my slide master. Now, what else do I need here? Oh, I do want to add some text to indicate, who's the agent, who's the customer. So let me add some text. I'm just going to add a text box here, and I'm going to say, this is you. And in terms of the style of the text, because I'm going with this kind of hand-drawn style with the graphics, I'm going to do a hand-written text here, or font. And there's one that I use called Marydale. I don't know where I downloaded it from. I downloaded it from Google Fonts or something, or another font website, but it's a nice handwritten font. It looks more modern. It's better than Comic Sans. Don't ever use Comic Sans. Put that over here. Why not use Comic Sans? Because it's overused. Too many people use it. It's no longer cool. Okay, copy and paste that. And this is going to be the customer. And these little things, again, help your learner identify who's who in the scenario. Also adds a little graphical details that make it a little bit more interesting, right? Put that over there. Okay. I think we're good for our master slide. I like it. All right. So let me close out of the master slide view. I'm going to save this project real quickly. Don't want to lose my work. So let me hit save. Save this to my desktop. I'll call it my customer service interaction. Actually, call it customer service branching scenario. You can call it whatever you want, obviously. Hit save. So I don't lose my work. Okay, so I built that. Let me pause here because I want to show you how I created these graphics. If you want to create your own graphics just like these, and feel free to skip this if you're just wanting to focus on the branching scenario. But people like to know how we get these graphics, how we create these. So I want to show it. So I'm going to open up PowerPoint here, and I mentioned to you earlier, all of these graphics were created 100% power in PowerPoint. And I have a separate how-to workshop on how to use PowerPoint for graphic design. I'll include that up above or down below. Feel free to check that out. That'll go into a lot more detail about how to use PowerPoint as a graphic design tool. But whenever I'm, in the early stages of designing a course in Storyline or whatever it is I'm using, I oftentimes will open up PowerPoint as kind of a prototyping tool. And you can see here, I have several different iterations of this branching scenario that I was designing in PowerPoint to establish my look and feel. And you can see I have different backgrounds, and I ultimately landed on something that looked like this. And this is what I used to create all of these different graphics, even the hand-drawn lines and these characters. So let me show you how. So I'm going to add a new slide, a blank slide here, and just show you how easy it is to create some of these graphics, and then you'll be able to create some of these on your own as well. So most of it is just simple shapes, right? So I'm going to insert a shape, and I want to create these backgrounds for each of the areas, our customer and our agent. And so those are simple shapes. So I'm going to insert a shape, and in this case, I'm going to do some of these rectangles here. And there's one of them. This rectangle here has 4 right-angled corners, but 1 rounded corner. So I'm going to draw that here, and maybe draw it just like this, And I'll put that over here. And I'm going to bring this over here a little bit so it fills up half of the slide, and I can adjust the radius of my rounded rectangle to make it really big or really subtle. It's up to you. Now, in terms of the fill color of this, you can make it whatever you want. In this case, this is for the customer side, so I think I made it a light green color like that. And I changed the outline. I gave it a really dark black outline, and I made it pretty thick. I gave it a weight of like 3 points, and that was that. Now, you might be wondering, how did I get that like hand-drawn effect? Well, this is a cool thing in PowerPoint. If you have one of the newer versions of PowerPoint, if you go to your shape outline, there's an option for sketch. And you can take any shape in Storyline and you can make it look like it was hand-drawn. And there's different levels of it. As I hover over this, you'll see it changes how much sketchiness it is, right? So I think I went with this one here, and it kind of creates a hand-drawn effect, kind of like almost like a comic book effect, right? And for the other side, for the customer service side or the agent side, I just duplicated it and rotate it and reflect it. So I'll flip horizontally. So now I have this side here, and they're overlapped a little bit. That's okay. And change the color, do a shape fill, maybe this light orange or maybe this light blue fill. I kind of like that, right? And we have a similar effect. Okay, so that creates those two sides. They're two, simple shapes. Now, if we go back to the demo course here, you might be thinking, okay, that's cool. What about this texture back here? There's these little, lines with these little bubbles. Little things like that add pops of texture that, makes it more visually interesting. It'd be rather boring if it didn't have that, right? And so, actually, I need to adjust this. It looks a little big. Right about there. Okay. Those are just simple illustrations that I sourced out of PowerPoint. So if you go to the Insert tab and you do Pictures and you do Stock Images, there are illustrations here. And there's all sorts of illustrations. Some of them are really, this unicorn is very detailed. But as you scroll through these, there are all sorts of different textures, illustrations, what are these? I don't know, pebbles, rocks. I could have used those. I could use this. There's just all sorts of different textures and illustrations that you can use. And you can edit these and change the color of them. They don't have to be yellow. But the one that I used was right there. Here it is. It's kind of like this Art Deco thing. So I'll insert that. And it comes in really big. I'll just make it smaller. Put it over here. And right now, it's really obvious, right? And so what I did is I right-clicked, did Format Graphic, and I increased the fill transparency to like really transparent. Let's do like 90% transparent, right? So it's like a watermark. I'm a big fan of watermarks. It just adds a nice subtle, hint of texture to it. And same thing, copy, paste, rotate, flip horizontally, put it over here, and oops, let's try that one more time. Put it over there. And now we have two sides with some texture. It looks nice. Okay. Now what about the bottom thing? Well, that's easy. Same thing as we did before. I'll do a shape. And this time I'm going to do the shape where it has two squared corners, but top rounded corner, right? Draw that here and put that to the bottom of the screen. And that had, I believe, a really dark fill color like this. And again, black outline, had 3-point weight on the outline. And then again, I want to give it that sketched look. There we go. Created that. Let's adjust these real quickly. Bring that in a little bit so I have some more space. Okay. Oops, not that guy. This one. Okay, looks pretty good. Okay, so that's kind of the foundation, the look and feel of my the background. Now, what about the characters? Well, those are in PowerPoint too. So if you go to your Insert tab in PowerPoint, again, do pictures, stock images, one of the really cool options are different cutout people and then cartoon people. The cutout people are great. They're similar to the cutout people you can get in Storyline. There's a whole bunch of those you can choose from. But the cartoon people are really cool. They're kind of like modern cartoons, and you can mix and match different heads and bodies and faces and hairstyles and accessories and decorations to create your own little interesting cartoon graphics. And I think they're a nice like happy medium between not being too cartoony, but also being modern. Like I could see these in a course. So what I did is I created, I'll create just the guy graphic here, or we'll do the agent graphic. I think I did, this one, person using a computer, insert that, put that over here, and make it bigger, obviously. And then we'll insert another one. We'll go to pictures, stock images, my cartoon people, and for a head, we'll choose, I'll choose a different one this time. I like this one here. Throw that on the screen. Make that bigger. I think it needs to be a little bit bigger than that. Proportions are important when you're doing characters. Okay, I like that. Insert, picture, stock image, and let's grab a face for my cartoon people. And there's a whole category for faces. And we'll just do a generic happy face, right? I like this one. Insert that and put that over here as well. Obviously, I need to make that much larger than it is. There we go. We've created a character. It's pretty simple. And I could do the same thing with the male character. And of course, if I go to the graphics for the project, I have all sorts of different, or I could show you them here. I have all sorts of different facial expressions that I saved off, right? So you can use PowerPoint to create these graphics. And once you've created them, if I wanted to use this, I could select all of this, group it as an object, and then right click and save as picture. And I can say, here's my agent character, right? And I'll save this on my desktop. And it saves it as a PNG, which is nice, which means it'll be transparent. And now what I have, if I go to my desktop here, once I minimize everything, there's my agent character. And I can bring that into Storyline, okay? So that's how I created those graphics. So if you wanted to spend some time creating these graphics for yourself in PowerPoint, by all means, feel free to do that. Simple shapes, simple graphics, right? Same thing with the character and the different faces. All right, let's go back to Storyline, continue building out our project. So we created our master slide here. for our interaction. That's great because now we're going to be able to rinse and repeat this. All right. So now let's start building out our very first scenario decision point that the learner will need to do. So the first thing I'm going to start with are the back and forth parts of the conversation. So in this branching scenario, there's going to be something the agent says, there's going to be a customer response, and then we're going to have a third speech bubble for, how are you going to respond to that? Because that's ultimately the purpose of the scenario, is how does the agent, the learner, respond to these back and forth interactions with the customer. So let's start by creating some speech bubbles. I'm just going to do that in Storyline. I could have created those in PowerPoint, brought them in here, but I want to show you how you can create some graphics in PowerPoint, how you can create some graphics in Storyline. And it's going to be a little bit easier because some of these shapes are going to have hover states and they're going to be selectable, so it's easier to create these directly in Storyline. So I'm going to use some captions here. I'm going to use these rounded rectangle captions here to create this back and forth conversation. And I'll just make them about that big, center them here. And this one's going to be the first one for interacting for what the agent's going to say or what you're going to say as the learner. And I'm going to stylize it, give it a shape fill of white, give it the black outline, which I like. I'll give it that 3 points. Unfortunately, I can't do the squiggly effect in Storyline, but it's okay. It still matches the look and feel. And then for the customer, I'm going to duplicate it, bring that over here, because that's going to be his response. And I like to, kind of overlap them. It kind of gives it this stylistic look that I like. You don't have to, but I kind of like that. And then there's going to be ultimately, how do you respond to that? And I'll bring this to the front so they kind of all overlap each other just like that, right? And so here's going to be, here is some text. Let me stylize this. I don't like my text to have that weird shadow, so I'm going to get rid of that. I can't read it, so I'm going to make it black. And I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to make it like 9 points, which is small here, but we're going to be adding lots of text, and once we preview it, it'll be much easier. And here is some text. I should have done this with all of them, right? Actually, I don't need text in that one. You'll see why here in a moment. Okay, turn off that shadow, make it 9 points, make it black. There we go. Now here, this is in the branching scenario, it's this back and forth conversation. This is obviously the learner's going to choose down here how they respond. So what do I want to put in here? Well, for that, I'm just going to insert a text box, and I'm going to type in, how would you respond? And you'll see why I'm putting this in a separate text box here in a moment. It'll have to do with the feedback layers and what we're going to display to the learner. And maybe what I'll do to give it some visual, make it look visually different from the rest. So I'm going to make it Marydale. I can make it a little bit larger there. And maybe I'll rotate it subtly. It gives it that handwritten feel. Okay, so there's that. I'll be adding text to this here in a moment. Next, I need to add the options. These are the things that the learner is going to choose from. And so to save myself some time, I'm just going to copy this, paste it on the screen here. That's going to be one of the options. And I'll put it right about there. And copy and paste. And that one can go here, lined up. And like I said earlier, if this were a real branching scenario, a real course I was creating, I'd probably do more than 2 options, right? Obviously, in this instance, there's an obvious correct answer and an obvious incorrect answer. In a real situation, a real course I was building, I probably put in 3 options just so that, they're all plausible responses and it challenges the learner a little bit more. But for the sake of now, to keep things simple for us, we're going to just do 2, all right? And every time you add additional options, right, if they all branch to different areas, that's going to make your course even exponentially more complex. So we're just going to keep it simple with 2. Okay, the last thing I'm going to add to this screen is I'm going to copy and paste this. And I want to make it really clear what I want the learner to do. So I'm going to say, select a response from here. And let me make it easier to read. I'll make it a white text there. And I think it's important, whenever you're building interactive courses and Storyline or a branching scenario, anytime you want the learner to take action, it's important that you tell the learner what you want them to do, either in your audio narration or on screen. So I want to indicate that, you're going to select one of these 2 responses. Now, one last thing I need to do, actually a couple more things I need to do here. First off, I want to add hover states to these because they're interactive. So that's another thing. Anytime something's interactive, you want to add some sort of hover state to indicate that. So let's do that for this one first, and I'll copy and paste it. So I'm going to add edit states, add a new state. We're going to add a hover state. You'll see what that looks like once we preview it. And I'm going to keep it simple. I think I'm just going to make it this blue color, kind of, harkens back to the background for the agent. And these are the responses the agent might be making. So I think it makes sense to make it that blue color. And so now we have a simple hover state for that. And rather than doing that all manually for this other one, I'm going to use my format painter. So one of the cool things you can do, if I go to my home tab, if I select the format painter, it's going to copy the formatting of this, including the states, and I can paste it. So I'll select the format painter, and now my cursor has that little paintbrush, and I can go click on this, and it's added that hover state. How do I know? Well, I'll go to my states panel and see, there's my hover state. Copied and pasted that hover state. Cool. Let's hit save. Okay. Final thing I need to add to this slide before we start using it to build our interaction. I don't have a face here. So I need to insert a facial expression here. And the reason, like I said, I didn't put those on the master slide, I'm putting them on my slide here, is because as the learner progresses and they select different responses and the customer reacts, I want to be able to change the face. So let's insert that as a picture from file. And we're just going to start with a neutral face. I have that here. Again, these are all those facial options that I got out of PowerPoint. Put that here. It's a little big, so make it a little bit smaller. I think that looks good, right? Okay, let's hit save. All right, I think we're ready to start adding some content to our branching scenario. So let's go back to our Miro board here. And don't worry about the animations. We're going to address the animations separately. Whenever you're building something in Storyline, it's easy when you're new to Storyline, especially when you're new to Storyline, it's easy to get overwhelmed by the sum of the thing that's created. When in reality, we're just going to start simple. We're going to start by just building the branching scenario. We're not going to do any animations or anything complex like that. And then we're going to go back and start adding additional layers of complexity. But let's just start building the basics of the branching scenario. Let me zoom in here on this. And I'm going to scroll up here a little bit if I can. There we go. Yes, I can move with my mouse cursor, but it's a little temperamental. Okay, so we have question 1. Thanks for calling Compay. How can I help you today? The customer says, hello. I just got my bill and there's a $50 service fee. The rep I spoke to said I wouldn't have to pay. Select a response. So that's what we have going on here. So I'm just going to copy and paste this out of my Miro board. And this is, again, as I do this, this is why it's so important to storyboard out what you're building before you build it, right? I don't want to be building my branching scenario, like technically building it, while also trying to figure out the content at the same time. So it's easier to, storyboard it out in this Miro board or some other mind mapping tool. And then that way I can just copy and paste this stuff into Storyline, right? So paste that in there. Just do something like that. Thanks for calling Compay. How can I help you today? Great. Now let's do the customer's response. Hello, I just got my bill. There's a $50 service fee. I don't want to pay it. Okay, cool beans. Paste that in there as well. Very good. So now it's all starting to come together, right? Looks like a branching scenario almost. Okay, now we have to do our 2 responses, right? So this is going to be our correct response. This is going to be our incorrect response, okay? So let's get those. So here's our correct response. Well, let's look into that. Let me pull this up for you. Do you remember who you talked to? Do we ever remember who we talked to? I don't. Okay. Paste that in there. That looks good. Now let's go back here and copy the incorrect response. Copy. Paste. Okay, good. And let's hit save. Now I could start building out my feedback layers, right? The learner is going to choose one or the other and it's going to give feedback. The customer's expression is going to change, but there's a couple of little housekeeping items we need to do before we do that. First, let me rename the slide. This is question 1. So don't want to forget that. Question 1. The other thing I want to do is I want to rename some of these items in the timeline. Eventually we're going to be adding triggers and then those feedback layers, and it's going to really help us to understand what these items are on our screen because we have a lot of similar shapes and images and all of that stuff. So I'm going to open up my timeline and let's rename some of this stuff here, right? So let's start from the top. So we have customer's face. That's that item, okay? We have select a response text, okay? Then we have how would you respond text. And these aren't all items. You don't have to rename all of these, but it's helpful. Let's go down here. So we have agent, what do I want to call that? Text 1. Then we have, some of these are in some weird funky orders, aren't they? Then we have customer text 1. And you can name these whatever you want, right? What's going to be really important is that we rename these items. So we'll call this my correct response and incorrect response. And then what's this rounded rectangle? I'll call this my response. We'll call this agent response area. I guess I don't know why I needed to put these ones there. I'll get rid of those. Okay. I think that's okay. That's a fine way to rename it. You can rename it whatever you want. Okay, so I think we have everything established for us to start building our feedback layers, all right? What's great about what we've done so far is what we've built now, I can, and especially once we add the feedback layers, I can just copy and paste it to create each subsequent decision point in my scenario. But let's get the feedback going. So I'm gonna add a feedback layer. I'm gonna do that with a slide layer. So I'll add a feedback layer, and we're just gonna build out the correct feedback layer, and then I'm just gonna duplicate it. So I'll call this my correct feedback, okay? And let me talk about, I guess, some philosophical stuff that I think is important when you're designing a branching scenario like this in Storyline. Whenever I build a branching scenario, I think it's important that when the learner selects an option, in this case, when they select one of these two responses, it's important that when we give them feedback, they can see that feedback in context with what they've selected. Right? So here's what I don't want to do. What I mean by that is I don't want the learner to click one of these options and then they get feedback and it covers up the entire scenario. I want my learner to still see the discussion back and forth. I want them to see what they've selected and then also see the feedback so they can see the entire interaction and the feedback all together. And that can make designing a branching scenario, like visually designing it and laying it out, a little bit of a challenge. What I'm going to do that is I'm going to use this area down here at the bottom to show the feedback because I don't need to show these options anymore. I'm actually going to move whatever the learner selected. That's going to go up here to complete the interaction, and then it's going to show the feedback down here, all right? Now, in order to do that, though, there's a lot of stuff that's on my base layer that I don't want to be able to see, and I don't want the learner to be able to see it. So once they get some feedback, I don't want them to see select a response. I don't want them to see the correct and incorrect responses. I don't want them to see how would you respond, right? I want to be able to change all of that. And I might even want to change the customer's expression as well. So one of the things that you can do, and I covered this in my how-to workshop on my Articulate Storyline Tips, Tricks, and Time Savers, which I'll put up above and down below, is how you can hide base layer items when you're on a slide layer, all right? So if I open up my timeline for my correct feedback layer, you'll see here I have my base layer objects. And if I click on this little caret to expand it, I can see all of these base layer items, which I renamed, which helps me, and I can hide them. So for example, I don't want to show the correct response or the incorrect response, so I can hide those. The select a response text, I don't want that, so I'm gonna get rid of that. And again, it's just hiding it on my slide layer. And sometimes it takes a minute for these to hide. It's a little glitchy in Storyline. There it goes. How would you respond? I don't want to show that because ultimately whatever they've selected on the base layer will show up here. And I might even want to hide the customer's expression because I might want to change how that looks. So I'm going to hide the customer's face as well. Okay. Hide that. And it'll take a moment to hide. Come on. Oh, it'll hide in a moment. Okay, no, there it goes. Now I can start replacing all of this. So the first thing I want to do is I want to show what the learner selected here, whatever one of the options were. So what I'm going to do is just insert a text box and put that over this box here, or this little speech bubble. And let me stylize it first, like the rest of my text. It's going to be centered. It's going to be 9 points. and bring it down here so it's kind of in the middle there of that speech bubble. Okay, go to question 1. Now this is my correct feedback. So if they get the correct feedback, it's assumed they've selected this one. So I'm going to copy this out and paste that in here, because then that will complete that scenario, right? Or that decision point. Move it up here a little bit so it's more centered. Okay, cool. That's done. Now I want to provide the feedback down here. So that's going to be its own separate text box. I'm just going to copy this text box, put it down here. This is the feedback the learner is going to see. Let's make it white so it's easier to read on that black background. Maybe I'll make it a little larger because it's not going to be as much text. I can make this a little bit bigger. Okay, that's cool. And for our feedback, I have to get that back from our Miro board. So I'm going to go over here, and here's that correct response. Here's that feedback. So I'll copy that. Great response, blah, blah, blah. Copy. Come back into Storyline. Here's that feedback. Paste it in there. Okay. And I can adjust the size of this to make it look a little bit better. There we go. Center that there. I think that's good. I kind of like that text I had here on the base layer, like select response. Maybe this will be feedback. Type in that. Let me rename that in the timeline so it's not confusing, because it's not select response, it's feedback text. And then here's the feedback. And then we can say learner selection for that text right there, right? Okay. And also we need to add in the customer's face. Now I could go insert this picture from scratch again. One thing that might help me is if I copy it from my base layer, I'm gonna copy it, do a Control-C, Control-V. What's nice is it puts it right into place. And now what I can do is rather than deleting it and replacing it, which I'd have to resize and make sure it's in the right spot, I can just simply right click on it and then do replace picture from file. And we selected the correct response, right? So maybe he's going to be a little bit more delighted. So we'll do a delighted face like that. There we go. And you see how it just swaps it out? And it's in the same size, same location. It looks good, right? Okay. Final thing I need to add to this before I create the incorrect feedback layer is how does the learner proceed to the next screen? So I want to add a continue button here. So let's go to insert, and we're going to do a shape. And where are my shapes? Oh, there's my shapes. Okay. And we're going to do just a simple arrow here. Do one like this. Draw that here on the screen. Don't want it to look too crazy. There we go. And we'll say keep going. And again, I want to stylize this. Here's one quick tip. One thing you don't want to do is you don't want to just leave shapes like this, that default color blue. This is just a quick tip for those of you who are new to e-learning and trying to transition to e-learning. There's a telltale sign that hiring managers use to determine whether or not somebody's brand new to Storyline. People who are brand new to Storyline will insert shapes and leave it this default blue. And that's just kind of an unspoken no-no. You always want to customize it in some way. Don't use the default color, the default blue. That's just, you know, it's like, you see that, you know, oh, that person's new to Storyline. So change it. In this case, I'm going to make it look like the rest of my course. So I'll give it a white fill. I'll give it that black outline. I'll make it a 3-point weight. And of course, I need to change the stylization of the text. So maybe I'll go with that Marydale handwritten font, which looks kind of cool. Obviously, I can't read that, so I need to make that black, make it a little bit larger. That works for me. I also need to add a hover state to it, right? So I'll do the same thing I did before. Go to my states panel, add a hover state, edit states, add a new state, add a hover state, click add, and we'll do the format, we'll do the shape fill, and I'll make it that blue color before. So it's all consistent, right? Every time somebody sees that, they're going to know it's a button because that's what we've taught them with the previous interactions or the previous times they've interacted with one of our buttons. Let's click save. Okay. And let's rename that in the timeline too. My goodness. We'll say this is our continue. I'll just keep it simple. Keep going button. There we go. Okay. So I've built the correct feedback. Now I know I'm spending a lot of time doing all this, right? We're spending a lot of time building this, getting it right. And the reason why we're spending so much time on this now, I feel like this feedback needs to be bigger too. The reason why we're spending so much time doing this now is so that once I create the other decision points, I can just rinse and repeat these. I don't need to rebuild it, okay? So I'm going to duplicate this entire layer, duplicate. Now we're going to create our incorrect feedback layer, just like that. And now all I have to do is repeat everything I did before, replace this information. So the incorrect response was you probably misunderstood the guy. So let's copy that, put that in here. Oh, and this is another important learning point, because that's what the learner is going to see when they select the incorrect response. But before I do that, you're going to notice a couple things. All the stuff that we hid on our base layer when we were editing our correct feedback layer is all back here. We can still see it. That's an important thing to know, is that hiding items on a base layer, you have to do that individually for each of your base layers, or each of your slide layers. So now I have to go back here to my base layer objects and re-hide all the things I don't want the learner to see from the base layer. That would include the customer's face from that base layer, because again, we're going to change that. The customer's going to have a different response. We're going to hide the select response text. You're going to see some of it's not going to disappear right away because it's a little glitchy. The how would you respond text, that's in here. And then we're going to also hide the correct and incorrect responses like that. Good, I think that's everything. Okay, so I put in, this is the incorrect response, so that's what the learner selects on the base layer. That's going to go up here, right? That's what we want to see. Now let's change out the feedback, get that from our Miro board over here, not on the Mac side of my computer. Okay, copy that, storyline, put that in here, and paste it in there. That looks good. And we also need to change the customer's expression, right? So in this instance, we selected, you probably misunderstood the guy. There's not much I can do about it. Who'd you talk to, right? The customer's not going to respond well to that. So we don't want him delighted. We're going to change it. So right-click, replace picture from file, and let's do, he's not going to be angry. He's not going to be confused. Maybe he's going to be like questioning, like, what are you talking about? I think that works. Put that in there. And now we have that facial expression. And I'm going to hit save. Okay. And you can see it's getting easier to build these because we spent so much time building it, duplicating it, and now we're just replacing context or the text. Okay, so final thing we need to do before I preview this and then we start building the rest of our decision points is I need to connect all of these buttons up to show the slide layers. So if they select this one, I'm going to create a trigger for it. That's the correct response. We're going to show a layer. What layer are we going to show? Our correct feedback when the user clicks the correct response, right? That's why it's so important we rename things. Click OK. Same thing for our incorrect option. Create a new trigger. Show layer. What layer? Incorrect feedback when user clicks incorrect response. Good. And these next and previous button triggers, I don't need these. In fact, ultimately, I'm going to turn off my previous and next buttons because everything is going to be navigated with my own on-screen buttons. So I'm going to get rid of that, and eventually we'll customize the player. But let me hit save here. Okay, and let's preview it. See if this works, because I want to make sure I fine-tune everything here first before I start duplicating this to create my other decision points. So I'm going to preview the slide. And let's test out each response here. It's going to take a moment to preview. It always does the first time in Storyline. Obviously, we have all of our player stuff here. I'll customize that later. But here, okay, here's our interaction. So thanks for calling Compe. How can I help you today? Hello, I just got my bill, and there's a $50 service fee that the rep I spoke to said I wouldn't have to pay. How would you respond, right? So let's select the correct response. Well, let's look into that. Let me pull up your account. Do you remember who you talked to? Okay, he's delighted. That goes up here. Here's our feedback, and then we can keep going. That obviously doesn't take us anywhere because we haven't connected it to anything. So we're good there. Now let's replay the slide and let's try the incorrect one. Okay, so you probably misunderstood the guy, so there's not much I can do about it. Who'd you talk to? He's questioning, like, what the heck's going on? Be careful with your words, blah, blah, blah. It works, right? We have built a one slide little scenario interaction, right? I guess I could stop here, right? If you wanted to, you could build something like this as a, let's put into practice with a single question. Obviously, what we're doing here is a little bit more complex. I'm going to close this. Let's hit save again. What I want to do now is I want to build out the branches, right? So when the learner corrects the correct response, it's going to take them to now another unique decision point. Or if they select the incorrect response, it's going to take them to a totally different question and response, right? But we've built out the foundation of this, which now means I can just copy and paste the slide and replace all the information and keep rinsing and repeating it. That's the beauty of spending a lot of time up front building it the proper way, okay? So here's what we're gonna do. Let me go back to my Miro board here. We literally just built out all of question 1. Pretty easy peasy. Now if I zoom out here, what we're gonna do next is we're gonna build out question 2A here, which is the next decision point. And that's going to be if the learner selects the correct response, right? So there's going to be the customer's response to our previous selection, and then we have how we can respond with some additional feedback. So let's build out question 2A in our Miro board. So I'm gonna go back to Storyline here, and I'm just going to duplicate the slide. Duplicate it. I'll rename the slide question 2A, and now we're gonna start building it. So what we want to do is we want to continue the conversation from our previous selection. So technically this is a duplicate of question 1, so we can take it here. So if the learner selects, well, let's look into that. Let me pull up your account. Do you remember who you talked to? That's what I want to have up here now, because again, we're continuing the conversation. So I'm going to copy this, put that up here, right? Now let's get how does the customer respond to that? Let's go back to our Miro board here. So he's going to say, no, I'm afraid I don't. He said there was a promotion running. Okay, cool. We'll select that. Come back to Storyline here. Put that in there for his response. Paste it in there. And I'm just going to edit some of that. There we go. And now, again, how would you respond? So now we have our 2 new options for the learner to choose from. So I'll go back to my Miro board. Let's get the correct response. See how much easier this is now that we've created it once? We're literally copying and pasting text into Storyline because we spent all that time building out the interaction on the front end. Okay, that was the correct response. Let's go get the incorrect response. Okay, copy, paste that into Storyline. Done. There's our incorrect response. We're done with that. Now we just got to edit our correct and incorrect feedback. So the correct feedback, so I see the $50 charge. That's what the learner is going to select here. So that would come up here to our response. I'll put that in there. And let's get the feedback for that option. So I'll go back to my Miro board. Here's the correct feedback. Great job. Our customer's happy still. We'll also customize his facial expression here in a moment. Okay, great job. You seem to be de-escalating the situation. We'll make him even happier. You know, actually in this instance, maybe we'll just leave him like that. Like he's delighted. You know, you don't always have to have the customer expression change every single time, right? So let's now do the incorrect response. So if the learner selects, well, I'm looking at your records. All I know is that they charged you $50. Great, we'll do incorrect feedback. Put that in here. And we'll definitely change this expression for this. And then let's change that feedback. So for the incorrect response, here's our feedback. Okay, copy and come over here. And here's our incorrect feedback, paste that there. Cool beans. Oops, where did everything go? Oh, there it's back. That was a glitch for sure. Okay. Now he's not gonna be happy with that, so let's change his expression. We will do a replace picture from file. And right now we have questioning face. We'll do, he's going to be confused, I think, this time. So we'll do that, like that. Okay. Move him around a little bit. There we go. All right. We're quite literally done with question 2A. We replaced the information, did our correct, incorrect responses, correct, incorrect feedback, and that was simple. Now let's do question 2B, and then we'll connect it all, okay? So I'm going to duplicate this. We did 2A, now we're going to do question 2B, okay? Let's find that in our Miro board. So we did 2A, that's over here, question 2B. So it's going to pick up with, what was it? Let's go back to Storyline here. So if I go back to question 1, that option is if the learner says you probably misunderstood the guy, there's not much I can do about it. Who'd you talk to? Let me copy that and put that at the top of question 2B. Because that was that incorrect response there. That takes us to question 2B. Put that in there. Good. And now we have to figure out, well, how does the customer respond to that? In our Miro board here, he says, how am I supposed to remember? All I know is that he said I wouldn't have to pay it because of some promotion. Cool stuff. Put that in here, paste it. Okay. Again, how would you respond? Let's get our 2 options from our Miro board. You're right, I'm sorry. Let me look into it. Can I put you on hold? Okay. A lot of copying and pasting here, but you're kind of getting it, I'm hoping. Okay. And do this one as well for our incorrect response. Paste that in here. And now we'll do our feedback. Okay, so let's copy this. So if they select this, that's going to show up here for our correct feedback. Okay. And you might be thinking, Tim, you're spending all your time narrating what you're doing. I promise you I'm not doing this just for you. I have to do this for myself to make sure I'm doing everything properly. So let's get our feedback here. Okay. Our correct feedback is this. That's better. Paste in our feedback. And let's figure out what we want his expression to be. So he says, you probably misunderstood the guy. What was his expression before? He was like, oh, you know what? We have to figure out what we did before on question 1A, or first question for our expression. So if he did the incorrect feedback, he had this questioning face. That's an important thing because we want that to continue. So on our base layer for that, let's change that here. Replace picture from file and put his face like that. And now we need to figure out what his expression should be. So if we select the correct response, yes, you're right, I'm sorry, let me see what I can find for you in the system. May I put you on hold? Is he gonna be delighted? I don't know about that yet, because we selected the incorrect response, so we kind of want to make it like he's not completely back to normal. So let's do replace picture from file, and he's going on hold. That's no fun. Maybe we will do, defeated face. Yeah, I like that. Okay, we've all felt that way when we're put on hold. Okay, we got that. We got the feedback. Now let's do our incorrect feedback. So let's go back to the base layer. Let's grab that option, the incorrect feedback option, paste that in here. Okay, and then let's grab our feedback from our Miro board. Try not to take the customer's frustrations personally. Okay, paste that in here. And I'm going to resize that slightly so it's a little bit bigger. There we go. Move it over here. And we need to change the customer's face. Now in this case, she says, listen, don't get mad at me. I didn't cause the problem. Hold, please. Well, he's not going to be very happy about that. So we're going to change his expression from, well, actually, hold on. Let's go back to the base layer. What was it? He has that questioning face. Okay, he's getting put on hold. He's not too happy about it. Replace picture from file. And in this case, I don't want him completely angry yet. Let's do despaired face, right? He's not going to be happy about this, so he's despaired. Oh, and that's a little tiny. So let's make it a little bit bigger there. Like that. Okay, cool. And let's hit save. Okay, so we built out those 2 questions. We built out question 1. Now we built out question 2A, 2B, where they branch to. Now let's connect them, okay? So I'm going to go back over here to question 1, because right now none of our slides are connected. So they have question 1, correct, incorrect. If they get correct feedback, they're going to go to 2A. So we're going to add a trigger to our keep going button, our continue button, on our correct feedback layer on our first question. That's going to tell Storyline, create a new trigger. We're going to jump to slide. What slide are we going to jump to? Not next slide. We're going to hardwire it, if you will, to question 2A when the user clicks that button. Good. You'll see that connected there. Now let's correct our incorrect feedback layer, our continue button here, to jump to slide to B when user clicks the keep going button. All right. Now you'll see what happens. Let's go back to story view here. Look what we have here. I'm going to zoom in. This looks very similar to our Miro board, right? What did we just build out? Well, we just built out the first part of this branching scenario, that pyramid, all right? And if we go back to Storyline, you can see that there. It mimics that, and it shows the branching. Now, for reasons that make no sense to me whatsoever in Storyline, when you branch something like this, rather than listing the subsequent slides, like slide 1.2 for question 2A or slide 1.3 for question 2B, rather than doing it left to right as it logically would, it puts them like in reverse. Don't matter. It doesn't matter. It's still going to work. It all works just fine. So let's preview it. Let's preview the entire project and see what we have here so far. Again, I'll customize the player here a little bit later. Thanks for calling Compay. How can I help you today? Hello, I just got my bill. There's a $50 service fee that the rep I spoke to said I won't have to pay. How would you respond? Let's do our correct response. Okay, he's happy. Great response. Remember, our customers need your help. Blah, blah, blah. Let's keep going. And you know what? I didn't edit his face there. I might need to change that. Let's look into it. Let me pull up your account. Do you remember who you talked to? No, I'm afraid I don't. I see the $50 service fee. Okay, he's confused, and now that's the end of that. If I were to replay the entire project, we'll do the incorrect one. He's not too happy about that. Be careful with your words. Keep going. And, you know, we can say, you're right, I'm sorry. Let me put you on hold. Goes back and forth. Now, the thing about this is we only have three slides. We have one decision point with 2 outcomes. So we have 3 decision points. This has a total of 4 different outcomes so far, right? So the next set of decision points is going to have a total of 8 different outcomes. So each level we go deeper. This is where things get more confusing, right? Or not more confusing necessarily, but more complex. So as we build out questions 3A, B, C, and D, it's going to get more and more complex. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to continue building out the rest of these decision points. But keep in mind, it's no different than what I just showed you. I'm just duplicating, rinsing, and repeating. So I'm going to fast forward through this. I'm going to come back to you and pick up once I've built all of those and connected all of it. But like I said, all you're doing is just doing what I just did. Rinse and repeat, all right? So I'm going to keep building out these. And if you want to do that on your end, by all means, and I'll see you here in a little bit, all right? So now I'm going to do question 3A. All right, so we're back. So here's what I've done so far. Earlier we built question 1 and then questions 2A and 2B. And so what I've done since then is I've gone ahead and built out questions 3A, 3B, 3C, and 3D, and then connected all of those, right? And that took a hot minute. But like I said, it was just a matter of duplicating the slides, replacing the information from our storyboard in Miro, and then reconnecting all of it, all right? And, it took a little bit longer because every level you go down in a branching scenario, it gets exponentially more, not complex, but there's just a lot more you have to edit and change in a scenario like this. So if you're doing it on your own, don't be surprised if it might take you an hour or 2 just to get in the groove of replacing all that information. So let me preview at least what we have so far. I'm going to preview the entire project, and it's going to take a hot minute here. And again, we'll customize the player and all that stuff later. So thanks for calling Compay. How can I help you today? Hello, I just got my bill and there's a $50 service fee that the rep I spoke to said I won't have to pay. How would you respond, right? Well, let's look into that. Let me pull up your account. You probably misunderstood the guy. Okay, we're going to say you probably misunderstood the guy. And then we have our feedback, continue forward. Okay, well, how am I supposed to remember who I spoke to? All I know is I said I won't have to pay it. Okay, you're right. Let me see what I can find out in the system. May I put you on hold? Okay. Oh, he's not too happy. And then keep going. And then you're right. I'm sorry. Let me put you on hold while I research this. He says, I suppose so. And then we have our final 2 responses. You were right, or I found the $50 service charge. And these don't do anything because actually this is where the scenario ends after I select one of these responses. So I want to do something a little bit different to indicate, the outcome of the branching scenario. So I'm going to build out the feedback layers for these a little bit differently than what I've built for everything else. You'll see that here in a moment. So there's 2 things I want to do in addition to everything else we've built so far. So I'm going to build out those feedback layers for all the 8 different outcomes here. But one thing I want to do is I want there to be something that the learner sees at the beginning of the course, right? So at the beginning of the course, I don't want to just throw them into the scenario. I want to give them like a starting screen, if you will, right? And you'll see that in our storyboard here. If I open it up, there's this opening screen that I have here. And it says, in this scenario, you'll be helping a customer with a billing question. The goal is to help the customer with their questions without escalating the situation. And there's a lot of different ways I could go about building this. I could put it on its own separate slide, or I could do it on this first question as well. I'm going to put it on this first question because I want to create kind of a cool effect. So I'm going to add a slide layer, and this one's going to be called the opening screen. And I'm going to do a bunch of things here that's just, once it all comes together, you'll see the effect of what I'm creating, but just stick with me as I do this, all right? So I'm going to insert a shape, and I'm going to darken out the entire screen area. And you'll see what I mean by that here in a moment. I'm going to put a big shape over it. I'm going to make it the fill color of black. Turn off that outline, no outline. I'm going to right click on this and format shape, and I'm going to increase the transparency of it. We're going to make it, let's do like 30% transparent, right? Because I'm going to make a pop-up window appear here. And what I want to have happen is I want our two characters to be seen on this pop-up window. So this is going to be kind of an interesting effect that I'm going to create. Again, these two characters are on my slide master. So I'm going to go to my view tab, go to my slide master. I'm going to copy them out from my slide master, not cut, copy. Close the view here, go to the opening screen. I'm going to paste them right on top of where they were, okay? And I'm going to crop them a little bit because you can see that there's that little area that was supposed to be hidden behind that black bar. So I'm going to crop them ever so slightly so it looks more like they were on that starting screen. And like that. Okay, cool. And this is where I want there to be that opening pop-up window. So I'm going to insert a shape, and I'm going to put it right here, smack dab in the middle. And I kind of like it sitting, I'm going to have it sitting a little bit behind these two characters. So I'm going to do a shape fill, and everything I'm doing is really more stylistically. You know, you can do this however you want, but I want it to look good. And you do too, right? So we're going to make it look good together. And I'm going to bring these characters in front of it. So I'm going to select both of them, bring them to the front. And let's start adding some text. So I'm going to insert a text box on this. And we're going to say, can you help this customer? Question mark. And we'll make that our handwritten font, right? I'll do my Marydale. Find that there. Make that a little bit larger. Maybe I'll make it bold just to really drive home. We're going to rotate it ever so slightly, like that. Okay. Move that up here. And let's get in our opening screen text here. So in this scenario, you'll be helping a customer. I'll copy that, do a Control-C, and I'll insert my text box here. Put it in there. And let's just adjust that a little bit here. Don't like that. There we go. And we want a continue button. We want the learner to be able to continue. So I'm going to grab that actually from my feedback layer. And that's going to go up here. And you know what? I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. Okay. Let's do it. I don't know. I'm having fun with it. Okay. So that's that opening screen. That's what I want the learner to see when they get to the scenario. Oh, I need his face. Let me do that. Let's grab his face out of here. Copy that. Paste that here on the screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell Storyline when the timeline starts on this slide, show the opening screen. So I'll do a new trigger. I'm going to tell Storyline, show layer, opening screen, when timeline starts on the slide. So when they get here, I'll click OK. And on the opening screen, they're going to show this. And then there's going to be this button here. And I'm going to make this not jump. I need to change that. We're going to hide a layer. What layer are we going to hide? This layer when user clicks the right arrow, right? And we should be good. So let's preview that. Now, it shows up very abruptly, right? Because this timeline starts and I can click let's do it and it hides and now I'm jumped into the scenario. All right. Now, whenever I'm building something like this in Storyline, I start simple and then I start adding layers of complexity. So what I don't like about what I just built, even though I love the look and feel of that starting screen, I don't like that it shows literally immediately, because that's literally what the trigger says. When the timeline starts, come here. I'd almost like to see it animate in, you know? I don't want it to just be so abrupt. So this is where we're going to add an additional layer of complexity, because it works, but I want to, you know, jazz it up a little bit. To coin a term from what our subject matter experts and stakeholders often say. So let's go to our opening screen, and I'm going to adjust the timing and animations of some of these things just so it looks better. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some animations to these different objects. What I'd love to do is I'd love to have this black screen fade in. So I'm going to add an animation, and we're going to have it fade in. And, you know, whenever I'm working with something like a pop-up window, I always like to actually have it pop in. There's something very abrupt when you have a pop-up window that just appears like that. You know, it's just like, where the hell did that come from, right? So I want to have it animate in with everything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the box here, these items of text, and even this button here. And I'm going to add a fly-in animation. I'm gonna have them fly in from the top, which is a little different. Usually I have it fly in from the bottom, but I'm gonna have it fly in from the top, all right? And these two characters, so it looks natural, I'm gonna have these fade in as well, so they don't appear just out of nowhere. Actually, I don't think I need to add animations to those. Those will be just fine. Now, let's preview it and see what that looks like. It's still gonna be pretty abrupt. Yeah, it's still too abrupt. It's all happening too quickly, right? So this is now where I'm going to adjust the timing a little bit. So for example, maybe I want that rectangle in the background. Maybe I want it to be just a split second before I see it. So I'm going to move that, and let's have that be like half a second. So you're going to see the base layer slide, and then it's going to take like a half second before we see it. And then this is going to fly in. We'll have that be like another maybe half of a second there. These will be there. I don't need to adjust those. And then I want to have these kind of cascade in. So it's going to be the background shape. Then I want it to be the let's do it button, this text. And I don't know why everything disappeared there. And then can you help the customer? So you see this, you know, if you ever look at any of the items in my portfolio, I oftentimes do this with my animations. I have them cascade in subsequently from one another. So if we have the box, then we have the button. That's going to be one little notch over. Then we have the in this scenario. That's going to be one little more notch over from the previous one. And then can you help this customer? It's going to be one notch over. And they're all going to kind of like smoothly animate in a really pleasing way, if I do say so myself. So let's see what this looks like now. I'm going to preview the slide. See how, oh gosh, it's so smooth, right? I'll preview that one more time. So we see the base layer for a second, and then everything animates in, and now we can say, hey, let's do it. And now we can jump into the scenario, all right? I'm gonna show you one more animation trick though, because if I go back to the published version of my example, right? Let me replay this. You're gonna see something here that I do. I have all these things animate in. We can do that if we want to. Everything animates in just like I showed you. But when I click get started, see how it all animates back out? Ooh, that's really nice. Well, there's no real built-in way, if you will, to do that in Storyline, to add those sorts of extra animations that are triggered based off a learner's action, but we can kind of fake it. There's a weird jerry-rigged sort of way we can do it. I'm gonna hit save here, and let me show you this. This is more of an advanced technique. You don't have to do this if it's a little too much. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tell Storyline, what I wanna have happen is I want these to all animate out. And so let's add the animations, and I'll show you how to make that all operate. So I want it to reverse essentially what I just did. So we want this to fade out, so I'm gonna add a fade out animation. And then we want this one to fly out, and it's gonna fly out back to the top, right? Same thing with that. That's going to fly out. It's gonna fly out back to the top. This one's gonna fly out back to the top. This is probably way more excessive for this how-to workshop, but I know you are gonna ask me how to do it, so I'm gonna show you all this anyways. Fly out to the top, and then I think that's all that needs to be animated. Now let me do the timing for it. So it's going to be, this rectangle is going to fade out, and let's have that fade out, you know, at like 3 seconds here. And then it's going to be, this rectangle is going to fly out, and then everything's going to cascade in reverse. So then it'll be our can you help this customer? And again, I want it to be backwards, so I'm doing that little cascade thing. I don't know what else to call that. Then this one's going to be next, and then this one's going to be the final one. And you're going to notice that I'm adjusting my slide layer, the end of my slide layer, to be right when that last animation happens. I'll explain why here in a moment. But let me preview this so you can kind of see what it'll look like. Preview the slide. So it's all going to animate in. And it's all going to animate out right away. Ooh, and I don't like that. Actually, I need to adjust some of that. I don't like that box going out first. I need that to go out last. So let me adjust that. These are all going to go out before it. So let's adjust that one down once. And then let's make that rectangle be the last thing. So it's going to go like that. Let me preview that and see how that looks. So it all animates in. And it all animates out. I'm happy with that, okay? But it's doing it automatically. It's not doing it based off of the learner clicking the let's do it button, right? So I almost need it to pause and then animate out. And this is where we start doing tricky stuff in Storyline. So I'm gonna add a cue point here. After everything animates in, I'm gonna add a cue point right here because that's where I want the timeline to pause, okay? So what we're gonna tell Storyline is we're gonna tell Storyline, pause the timeline. Where is it? I always lose this. Oh, here we go. Pause timeline on this layer when timeline reaches cue point number 1, okay? Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna tell Storyline to continue the timeline when the learner clicks on the Let's Do It button. So I'm gonna edit this one. We're gonna say continue timeline or resume timeline on this layer when user clicks the right arrow. And then we're going to tell Storyline, I'm going to add one more trigger, hide this layer when timeline reaches the, not the timeline, no, when timeline ends, sorry, when timeline ends. So hide layer, this layer when timeline ends on this layer. So what's happening is, it's automatically animating in, so we have the base layer. It's going to show layer when timeline starts. Then it's going to animate in. Then it's going to pause because it reaches the cue point. So it's going to pause. Then the learner is going to click the Let's Do It button, which is going to resume the timeline. And then this will keep playing, and then it'll animate out. And then once it gets to the end of the timeline, then it's going to hide the layer. All right? If you can wrap your mind around that, congratulations. It took me years to figure that out. But that's how I do that. So let's preview it, see if it works. Okay, animates in. That looks so beautiful. Let's do it. And it animates out. See? Ugh. I'll replay it one more time just to bask in the glory of what I just did. There we go. Animates in. Let's do it. Animates out. Looks pretty cool. Okay. So we did that opening screen. Fun stuff. Let's close that. Now let's start doing the feedback at the end of the course. Okay. I want it to look similar to this. You'll notice this if I go to the published version of the course. Let me go all the way to the end. Those are slide transitions. We'll add those here in a moment as well. This is what it would look like. So it kind of like, again, harkens back to the way it started, right? Everything fades out, we have this animation, and then we can start over. So I want it to look something like this. So my feedback's gonna look slightly different, okay? So let's do this. I'm gonna go to my slides here. And I don't have any feedback layers. I don't say show layer. So let's go ahead and add our feedback here, which is really the conclusion, right? So, oops, I didn't mean to add 2 of those. Let me delete that. We're just going to call it the same thing, correct and incorrect feedback. Correct feedback. And let's build one, and then I'll duplicate it for the rest of them just to keep it simple. Okay, so we're doing our correct feedback. Just as before, I do not want to see all of this on my feedback layer. Actually, let's see how we did it here. Yeah, so we still have all this feedback here. So I'm gonna go to my base layer and my timeline and hide the things I don't want the learner to see. And so in this case, it's gonna be hiding the options here, the correct and incorrect options, okay? And what else did we hide? Did we hide the options in there? Yeah, I think we did, but I need to replay it. So let's play that one more time. because now I'm not remembering what I did. Everything animates in. Get started. Cool. We'll do that, do that, do that, do that. Okay, so when I select that, okay, so those aren't there. So I'm also going to hide these. That looks right. And then how would you respond? Okay, that feels right. And I'm going to put my feedback down here just as I did before. So let me go copy that from one of my other slides here. Do feedback. This will ultimately become a start over button. So we'll go to the end here. Okay, I'll call this start over now, just so I don't forget. And I'll just say here is the feedback text, just to keep it simple for myself. And I want there to be that, that kind of the same effect that we had before, right? So I'm going to go back to question 1, and I'm going to copy some of this stuff. I'm going to copy the character, copy the box, copy him, copy the face, copy the background. I'm going to copy all of that. And we're going to go down here to our feedback, correct feedback. And I'm going to paste that all here. But you'll notice I do need my feedback. I'm going to send this to the back so that I can still see this stuff here. Okay, that's looking good. Let's make sure we bring over his facial expression too for the correct feedback. We'll ultimately end up changing that. Actually, I don't need to copy and paste that for now. Let's get the feedback. Okay, so let's go to our outline here. This is where things are getting more complex, right? So we're doing, what slide is this? We're on slide question 3D. So this is all the way down over here. So it's kind of going in reverse, but that's because Storylines puts those slides out of order. Oops, didn't mean to zoom out there. Okay, so the customer's going to say, I suppose that will work. This is barely worth all the hassle, right? So I want to show what the learner selected and the customer's response. So this is what the learner selected. So let's grab that here. Copy. I'm going to paste that there. I don't need the trigger because it's not going to be interactive. Let's get rid of that hover state on it as well because I don't want that to show up. I'm just copying and pasting it to keep it simple there. So we're going to see the customer or our selection and then the customer's response. I'm just going to select this. Put that in here. Oh, it's oddly larger than that. You know what? I'm just going to copy and paste this. Don't know why it's like that. And I kind of like that layering effect again. We'll put that over here. So if our agent says you are right, the fee will be waived from all form of rebate. Can I send you the slip? There's that. His feedback is, I suppose so. This is barely worth all the hassle. Okay. Paste that in here. Okay, that looks good. And then we'll give our feedback here. What's our feedback? It appears you've confused the customer and he's unhappy. Copy that and paste that in here as such. All right. And then we have our start over. And the start over is going to not jump to slide 1.5. It's going to jump to slide 1, question 1, when the user clicks the right arrow. Because again, we're going to start over. All right. Let me adjust a couple of things here. I don't need an animation on this. I'm going to turn off the animations because then again, I copied and pasted those. So these are always things you want to make sure you're spending time checking when you copy and paste multiple objects. You don't want to accidentally bring over triggers, hover states, other items that you're not using, okay? And let's make sure everything's fine on the timeline. And it is not because I had all those animations, right? So let's do this, show to end. And then show to end so I don't mess that up. Okay, so let me preview this, but first let me connect. We're going to show our correct feedback when the learner selects the correct response. Let's test this, make sure it works fine. Preview the slide. Okay, correct one. There we go. It appears you've and we'll continue on. Oh, we don't need that to animate out. Let's fix that first. We have turn off all of our, turn off our fade in, and turn off our fade out. Now let's preview it one more time. Okay. And then we have that. Let's change his facial expression too. He doesn't seem too happy about it. So let's do replace picture from file, and we're gonna do, I don't know, he's probably defeated at that point. That's fine. Okay. So that's what I want the end feedback to look like. I know that was a lot of work, but again, we're creating a great experience here. So let's duplicate it and let's do the incorrect feedback. And then again, I'll fast forward and do the rest of these, and I'll meet you back here in just a moment. All right, so let me duplicate this, incorrect feedback. This will be easier now. So we're gonna copy and paste the text for what was the incorrect response. Copy and paste the incorrect response. Okay. And then what's his response to that? I don't know yet. So we're gonna have to go here and where does he respond? Oh, he's gonna want to cancel his service. That's no fun. Copy. And we will paste that into here like that. Okay, cool. Let's copy and paste the feedback, and then I'm going to turn off all those items on the base layer again. Because again, you have to do that on a slide layer by slide layer basis. Paste that there. Okay. We have our start over. That's going to jump the slide. Let's connect this to show our incorrect feedback. That's good. And let's turn off all these base layer items that we don't need to see. Expand our base layer. And we're going to turn off how would you respond. We're going to turn off the incorrect response, the correct response, and then all of the other responses, right? I think that was everything. Yeah. Let's preview it. Okay, incorrect response. Now he's defeated. Oh, we need to change his face. He's not defeated. He wants to cancel the service, right? So make him really angry. Angry face. Done. Okay. And let's hit save. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend time. I'm going to build out all of these different outcomes. I'll fast forward it, and then I'll meet you back here once I'm done with that. And then we'll do some more stuff with the animations. And I will also customize the player, and then we'll be done here in a moment. So I'll be right back. All right, so we are back, and I have gone ahead and added all of the conclusion, feedback layers, if you will, for all of our different outcomes. Again, that took a hot minute, but once I created it once, I was able to rinse and repeat it for all of these slides. Again, if you're following along, feel free to take your time on all of that. All right, so we're almost done here. I'm gonna preview the entire project here so you can see what we've done so far. And there's a couple of fine-tuning, last minute things we need to do. First off, I need to customize the player. I'll talk about that here in a moment. So here's our opening screen. We're going to get started. It animates out just like I showed you. And then we have our different responses here. The learner, can see the outcome, keep going, so forth and so on. I have those animations at the beginning. And let's all get all the way to the end, actually. Let's see what happens here. And I added some animations to the outcome as well, just like I did at the beginning. So feel free to do that on your end. But I feel like there needs to be some movement or some animation in between the different decision points, because right now it's just, it's so abrupt. So this is where we start fine tuning and building upon and adding layers of complexity from what we've done, right? Now that we've built everything. So I'm going to keep it simple. What I want to have happen is as the learner progresses to each subsequent decision point, I'd like there to be some sort of slide transition. Now, I rarely use slide transitions in Storyline or even in PowerPoint, but in this case, I think it could add a nice effect. So what I want to have happen is I'm going to add a transition, and I kind of like this push one, where it's going to like push as if we're moving from one scene to another. So I'm going to hold the Control key on my keyboard to select all of my slides here, except the first one, because that's the opening one. I'm going to add a push transition. I'm going to have it push to from the bottom, and let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to preview the entire project, and let's see how that turns out. So we animate in our thing. Let's get started. And now we're going to select response. We get our feedback, and we're going to keep going, and then we get that push. I kind of like that. Let's do this one. Keep going. Oh, that one didn't do it. But that one did. Oh, that was funky. I think that was Storyline being glitchy on me there. Oh, I don't know what's going on. Let's replay this entire project. See what just happened there. Yeah, we'll close. Let's preview it again. Preview the entire project. Storyline's being weird on me here. Okay. Get started. Let's do that. Keep going. There we go. Do that one. And it keeps going. So you can kind of see those transitions. I like that. I also want to add transitions to my slide layers on my feedback slides. You know, when we show one of the feedback layers, it's all very abrupt. One of the cool things that you can do in Storyline is you can actually add slide transitions to slide layers. So if I wanted to, I can come in here on my feedback layer and add a fade in. I'll do the same thing with incorrect one, fade in, go over here. And I'm doing it one at a time because I found that sometimes Storyline doesn't always add all the transitions when you tell it to on all of the slide layers. So sometimes it's easier to just do it manually. And these ones are already animated in. So let's see how that looks. Let's preview the entire project. It's going to be a subtle change, but you'll notice when it shows a feedback layer. So here's the first slide. There's our opening screen. Click Get Started. All right, probably misunderstood the guy. And then, you know, that transition, that slow fade, very subtle. It really does help with the whole thing. So let's do it one more time. That fades. It just eases that change a little bit. Let's do it one more. And I don't know why it's being funky with my transitions there. There's clearly some glitch there with the previewing, but no worries. Okay, let me hit save. Final thing we have to do, and then we're done, is I need to customize my player. Okay, I'm going to do that. You know why? Because this is another telltale sign of a rookie Storyline user. Is, you know, you spend all this time building this really intricate series of slides, and then it looks like you haven't touched the player. You got to customize your player. So, you know, in this instance, we're not using any of the player controls. I'm not using the previous button. I'm not using the next button. I'm not using the menu. And so in those instances, why have it on? I like to turn it off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off all of the different items, the resources, the title. I'm going to change the colors and effects, maybe make it the light player. And even then, I don't even need to do that because I'm just going to turn off the menu players and controls. So I'm turning everything off on the player. I'll click OK, and now let's see what it looks like. Let's preview the entire project. And you'll see here in a moment, once it previews, hey, we have a really nice, clean, full screen experience without all of that player stuff, because I don't need it, right? Okay, gosh. I hope your head's not spinning, because that was a lot. I know this was definitely way more detailed than a lot of my other how-to workshops, but you know, I wanted to do something that was a little bit more, or a lot more in depth, and show you a bunch of different techniques, pulling together everything that has happened in my previous how-to workshops with the animations and the branching and the interactivity and how to do the graphics. So we learned quite a bit in this how-to workshop, and so, you know, branching scenarios can be really, really complex. But, you know, like I said at the beginning of today's session, start by creating your basic layout. Even if you're creating simple graphics in PowerPoint, create your master slide, the things that aren't going to change. Create one decision point interaction, everything from the options to the feedback. And then all you have to do is rinse and repeat for the rest of the branching scenario. Then once you've done that, then you can start adding additional levels or layers of complexity, whether it's something like this where we have this opening screen that animates in, or we edit the way the closing screens look, and then editing the player and adding animations, add additional layers of complexity after you get the basic stuff working. Because like I said earlier, you know, when you're new to Storyline, it's easy to get overwhelmed by the sum of everything that you created, but it doesn't have to be that overwhelming, right? Just start basic and then start adding additional layers of complexity. So I know I keep saying that, but that's really how, you know, people like myself who've been doing it for 10 years, that's how we do it, okay? Well, I hope you so much. I hope you enjoyed this how-to workshop so much. And like I said at the beginning of today's session, if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and that bell button so that you'll get alerted when I publish another video like this. And of course, join us inside the eLearning Designers community. It's free, and it's a great place where you can connect and learn with others who are also looking to grow their e-learning design skills and careers. All right. So thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate you tuning in today. So my name is Tim Slade, and until next time, I'll see you around.